What is infinity? Exploring the mathematical and philosophical concepts. Welcome to my channel Gaming Sim Life, where today we dive into one of the most perplexing and awe-inspiring concepts known to humankind, infinity. The idea of infinity has fascinated thinkers for millennia, from ancient philosophers and medieval theologians to modern scientists and mathematicians. It's a concept that stretches our minds to their limits, challenging us to comprehend the incomprehensible. Today, we'll explore infinity from multiple perspectives: mathematical, philosophical, scientific, and even psychological. What does it mean for something to be infinite? How do mathematicians handle infinity in their equations? What do philosophers say about the infinite nature of the universe or the divine? And how does contemplating infinity affect us on a personal level? This is a journey that will take us through the intricacies of mathematical theory, the depths of philosophical debate, and the wonders of scientific discovery. So, whether you're a math enthusiast, a philosophy lover, or just someone curious about the mysteries of existence, this episode is for you. Let's start by delving into the world of mathematical infinity, a realm where numbers never end and quantities can grow without bound. Ready to begin? The mathematical infinity. Infinity in mathematics is more than just a concept. It's a tool that allows us to understand and describe the limitless. But what does infinity actually mean in the mathematical sense? How do we define something that, by its very nature, defies definition? Mathematically, infinity is used to describe a quantity that is larger than any number you can imagine. It's not a number in the traditional sense, but rather an idea that helps us make sense of phenomena that have no bounds. To grasp this, let's explore how infinity is represented and understood in mathematics. Let's start with the basics: countable and uncountable infinities. You might be wondering, how can there be different types of infinity? Isn't infinity just infinity? This is where things get interesting. The concept of countable infinity is most easily understood through the set of natural numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. This sequence goes on forever, and it's a perfect example of what mathematicians call a countably infinite set. Even though the set of natural numbers is infinite, you can, in theory, list them all, hence the term countable. Now, what if we look at the set of all real numbers between 0 and 1? You might think that this set is also countably infinite, but here's the twist. It's not. The set of real numbers is uncountably infinite, meaning there are infinitely more real numbers between 0 and 1 than there are natural numbers altogether. This was first proven by the German mathematician Georg Cantor in the 19th century, and it revolutionized the way we think about infinity. Cantor's proof, known as the diagonal argument, showed that the real numbers cannot be listed in the same way that we list the natural numbers. This discovery led to the idea of different sizes of infinity. Some infinities are indeed larger than others. Cantor introduced the concept of Aleph numbers to represent these different sizes, with 0 Aleph null being the smallest infinity, corresponding to the set of natural numbers. This brings us to a fundamental question. How do mathematicians work with infinity in practice? Infinity often appears in calculus, a branch of mathematics that deals with change and motion. When you think of calculus, you might remember something about limits, an essential concept that allows us to analyze functions as they approach infinity. In calculus, we frequently encounter situations where a function's value grows larger and larger as its input increases. For example, consider the function f x equals 1/x. As x approaches 0 from the positive side, the value of fx increases without bound, approaching infinity. This is where limits come into play. Limits help mathematicians understand how functions behave as they approach certain points, including infinity. They allow us to calculate areas under curves, rates of change, and other quantities that involve infinite processes. But perhaps one of the most famous appearances of infinity in calculus is in the study of infinite series. An infinite series is simply a sum of an infinite sequence of numbers. For example, the series 1 plus 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/8 plus continues indefinitely. At first glance, you might think that adding up infinitely many numbers would lead to an infinite result, but that's not always the case. In fact, this particular series converges to a finite sum of 2. This idea of converging infinite series is a cornerstone of calculus and has profound implications for both pure and applied mathematics. It allows mathematicians to solve problems that would be otherwise impossible if we were limited to finite sums. Whether it's calculating the area under a curve, solving differential equations, or analyzing financial models, infinity is a key player in the mathematical toolkit. But infinity isn't just a theoretical concept. It has real-world applications. For instance, in computer science, algorithms often deal with infinite sequences or processes, particularly in fields like artificial intelligence and machine learning. Even in physics, the concept of infinity appears in the study of space-time and singularities. Yet, infinity also presents challenges and paradoxes. One of the most famous is Hilbert's hotel, a thought experiment devised by the German mathematician David Hilbert. Imagine a hotel with an infinite number of rooms, all of which are occupied. You might think there's no room for a new guest, but in Hilbert's hotel, you can always make space. By shifting each guest from room n to room n+1, the first room becomes available, demonstrating that infinity can behave in counterintuitive ways. These paradoxes highlight the complexity and sometimes the strangeness of infinity. They remind us that while infinity is a useful concept, it's also one that challenges our intuition and understanding of the world. This brings us to a critical question. What is the philosophical significance of infinity? How have thinkers from different eras and traditions grappled with this concept? And what can it tell us about the nature of reality? To answer these questions, we must venture beyond mathematics and into the realm of philosophy. Philosophical perspectives on infinity. The concept of infinity has been a central theme in philosophy for centuries, serving as both a source of inspiration and a subject of intense debate. While mathematicians approach infinity with rigorous definitions and proofs, philosophers often grapple with its more abstract implications, questions about the infinite nature of the universe, the existence of an infinite being, and the limits of human understanding. Let's start by exploring how ancient philosophers, particularly those from the Greek tradition, understood infinity. In ancient Greece, the philosopher Aristotle made a crucial distinction between what he called potential infinity and actual infinity. Potential infinity refers to a process that can continue indefinitely, like counting. You can always add one more number to your count, but you'll never reach an actual infinite number. Actual infinity, on the other hand, would be a completed infinite quantity, something that exists all at once. Aristotle rejected the notion of actual infinity, believing that it was impossible for something infinite to exist in the physical world. He argued that while processes could be potentially infinite, they could never be completed or fully realized. This view dominated Western thought for centuries, influencing both mathematical and theological discussions about infinity. However, not all ancient philosophers agreed with Aristotle. The pre-Socratic philosopher Anaximander, for example, proposed the concept of the apeiron, a term often translated as the boundless or the infinite. Anaximander believed that the apeiron was the origin of all things, an eternal and infinite source that underlies the finite world. The idea of the infinite as a fundamental aspect of reality continued to evolve, particularly during the Middle Ages, when it became closely associated with theological debates. Medieval philosophers and theologians grappled with the concept of an infinite God, an all-powerful, all-knowing being whose existence transcends the finite world. One of the most influential figures in this debate was Thomas Aquinas, a 13th century Christian philosopher and theologian. Aquinas argued that God is the only true instance of actual infinity, an infinite being who is not bound by time or space. For Aquinas, God's infinity was a key attribute, one that underscored his perfection and ultimate authority over the universe. This idea of an infinite God posed significant philosophical challenges. If God is infinite, how can finite human beings ever hope to understand him? This question led to a deeper exploration of the limits of human knowledge, a theme that would become central to modern philosophy. The Renaissance and the scientific revolution brought new perspectives to the concept of infinity. As the scope of human knowledge expanded, so too did the philosophical questions surrounding infinity. The development of the telescope, for example, revealed a universe that seemed vast, possibly infinite in its extent. This raised profound questions about the nature of space and the possibility of an infinite cosmos. The philosopher Giordano Bruno was one of the first to argue for the idea of an infinite universe. In the 16th century, Bruno proposed that the stars were distant suns, each surrounded by its own planets, and that the universe had no center or edge. This was a radical departure from the Aristotelian view of a finite, geocentric cosmos and placed infinity at the heart of the philosophical debate about the nature of the universe. Bruno's ideas were controversial, and they ultimately led to his execution for heresy. But his vision of an infinite universe was a precursor to later scientific developments, particularly in astronomy and cosmology. As we move into modern philosophy, we encounter a shift in how infinity is understood. Immanuel Kant, one of the most influential philosophers of the 18th century, argued that our understanding of infinity is not something we derive from experience but rather something inherent to human reason. According to Kant, the concept of infinity is a necessary part of how we understand space and time. We can't conceive of space or time as having an endpoint. They must be infinite even if we can't fully comprehend what that means. Kant's ideas paved the way for further exploration of infinity in both philosophy and mathematics. His work influenced later thinkers such as Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, who saw infinity as a fundamental aspect of reality, something that is always in the process of becoming, rather than a fixed, completed state. In the 19th and 20th centuries, philosophers continued to grapple with the implications of infinity, particularly in relation to existential and metaphysical questions. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, often considered the father of existentialism, explored the concept of the infinite in the context of human existence. For Kierkegaard, the infinite was not just a mathematical or philosophical concept, but a deeply personal one, tied to the individual's search for meaning and purpose in life. Kierkegaard's exploration of the infinite reflects a broader trend in modern philosophy, a shift towards understanding infinity not just as a concept to be analyzed, but as an existential reality to be lived. This brings us to one of the most profound questions in philosophy. What is the relationship between infinity and the human experience? How does contemplating infinity shape our understanding of ourselves and the world around us? As we move further into the modern era, we encounter new ways of thinking about infinity, ways that challenge traditional boundaries and open up new possibilities for understanding the universe. One of the most profound developments in modern philosophy is the idea that infinity is not just a concept to be analyzed, but a reality to be experienced. This shift is particularly evident in the work of existentialist and metaphysical philosophers who explore infinity in the context of human existence. Take, for example, the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche's philosophy is often associated with the concept of the eternal recurrence, the idea that the universe and all events within it are destined to repeat infinitely. This notion of infinite repetition forces us to confront the implications of living in a world without a beginning or an end, a world where every moment is both eternal and transient. Nietzsche's exploration of infinity is closely tied to his broader critique of traditional metaphysics and morality. For Nietzsche, the idea of an infinite, cyclical universe challenges the notion of linear progress and forces us to rethink our understanding of time, existence, and value. In a world where everything recurs infinitely, the weight of each moment becomes both unbearable and liberating. We are confronted with the need to affirm life in its entirety, to embrace the eternal return of every joy and every sorrow. This existential perspective on infinity reflects a broader trend in modern philosophy, a movement away from abstract theorizing and towards a more personal, lived experience of the infinite. For existentialists like Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, and Jean-Paul Sartre, infinity is not just a mathematical or philosophical concept. It's a lived reality that shapes our understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. This brings us to another key figure in modern philosophy, Martin Heidegger. Heidegger's exploration of infinity is deeply connected to his existential analysis of being. For Heidegger, the concept of infinity is tied to the human experience of time and mortality. In his magnum opus, Being and Time, Heidegger argues that human existence is characterized by a fundamental awareness of our own finitude, our own limited time on Earth. Yet, within this finite existence, there is a sense of the infinite, a sense that our being transcends the boundaries of time and space. This tension between the finite and the infinite is central to Heidegger's philosophy. It's what gives rise to the existential anxiety or angst that Heidegger describes as a fundamental aspect of the human condition. For Heidegger, the experience of infinity is not just about contemplating endless time or space. It's about confronting the infinite possibilities of our own existence. It's about recognizing that within our finite lives, we are always reaching beyond ourselves, always striving towards something greater, something infinite. This idea of infinity as an existential reality has had a profound impact on modern thought, influencing not only philosophy but also literature, art, and psychology. It challenges us to rethink our relationship with time, with existence, and with the unknown. But what about the infinite in a more literal, physical sense? How does infinity manifest in the natural world, in the universe itself? To answer this, we must turn to the world of science and cosmology, where the concept of infinity takes on new and fascinating dimensions. Infinity in science and cosmology. When we look up at the night sky, we see stars, galaxies, and vast expanses of space. But what lies beyond? Is the universe infinite, or does it have an edge? And if it is infinite, what does that mean for our understanding of space, time, and reality? These are some of the most profound questions in modern science, and they bring us face to face with the concept of infinity in a way that challenges both our intellect and our imagination. Let's start with one of the most intriguing concepts in modern physics, the idea of an infinite universe. For centuries, scientists and philosophers have debated whether the universe is finite or infinite in extent. The ancient Greeks believed in a finite cosmos, with the Earth at its center, surrounded by a series of concentric spheres. But this view was eventually overturned by the Copernican revolution, which placed the Sun, not the Earth, at the center of the solar system and opened the door to the idea of an infinite universe. In the 20th century, the development of general relativity and cosmology led to new insights into the nature of the universe. The discovery that the universe is expanding, a finding first made by Edwin Hubble in the 1920s, suggested that the cosmos might be infinite. If the universe is expanding, what is it expanding into? And if it has no boundaries, could it be infinite? The answer to this question is still a matter of scientific debate. Some theories suggest that the universe is indeed infinite, with no edges or boundaries. Others propose that the universe is finite but unbounded, meaning that it curves back on itself in a higher dimensional space, much like the surface of a sphere. One of the most fascinating implications of an infinite universe is the idea of the multiverse. According to some interpretations of quantum mechanics and cosmology, our universe might be just one of many, possibly an infinite number of parallel universes that make up the multiverse. In this scenario, every possible outcome of every event could exist in some universe, leading to an infinite variety of realities. The concept of the multiverse raises profound questions about the nature of reality and our place in it. If there are infinite universes, does that mean there are infinite versions of you and me, living out every possible version of our lives? And if so, what does that say about the uniqueness of our experiences, our choices, and our existence? These questions might seem like the stuff of science fiction, but they are grounded in serious scientific theories that challenge our understanding of infinity and the universe. Whether or not the multiverse exists, the very idea of it forces us to confront the possibility of infinity in a new and mind-bending way. But infinity in science isn't just about the vastness of space or the possibility of multiple universes. It also appears in the study of the very small, particularly in the field of quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is the branch of physics that deals with the behavior of particles at the smallest scales of energy and size. At this level, the rules of classical physics break down, and strange, counterintuitive phenomena begin to emerge. One of these phenomena is the concept of infinite probabilities. In quantum mechanics, particles don't have definite positions or velocities until they are observed. Instead, they exist in a state of superposition, where they can be in multiple states at once. The famous thought experiment known as Schrödinger's cat illustrates this idea. Until you open the box and observe the cat, it is both alive and dead, existing in a superposition of states. This leads to the concept of infinite possibilities. Every possible outcome of a quantum event exists simultaneously until one is observed. And in the context of the multiverse, each of these outcomes could exist in a different universe, creating an infinite number of parallel realities. Infinity also appears in the study of black holes, regions of space where gravity is so strong that not even light can escape. According to general relativity, the center of a black hole contains a singularity, a point of infinite density and curvature of spacetime. At the singularity, the known laws of physics break down, and the concept of infinity takes on a new and mysterious meaning. The idea of a singularity challenges our understanding of the universe and raises questions about the nature of space, time, and reality itself. What happens at the singularity? Is it possible to go beyond it, to explore what lies on the other side? These are questions that remain unanswered, but they remind us of the profound mystery that infinity represents in the natural world. Infinity in science isn't just about the very large or the very small, it's also about the nature of time itself. In classical physics, time is often viewed as a linear progression from the past, through the present, and into the future. But in modern physics, particularly in the context of relativity, time is more fluid, more complex. In the theory of general relativity, space and time are intertwined in a four-dimensional space-time continuum. The curvature of spacetime is what gives rise to gravity, and massive objects can warp spacetime in such a way that it bends back on itself, creating closed time-like curves. In such a scenario, time could theoretically loop back on itself, creating an infinite loop where the past, present, and future are not distinct but intertwined. This idea of an infinite loop of time challenges our conventional understanding of causality and raises profound philosophical questions. If time is infinite, what does that mean for our understanding of history, memory, and existence? Are we trapped in an endless cycle of repetition? Or is there a way to break free from the infinite loop? These questions bring us to the intersection of science and philosophy, where the concept of infinity takes on new and profound meanings. They challenge us to think beyond the limitations of our finite existence and to explore the infinite possibilities that lie beyond. The psychological and existential impact of infinity. As we've seen, infinity is not just a mathematical or scientific concept. It's also a deeply philosophical and existential one. But what does infinity mean for us as individuals? How does contemplating the infinite shape our understanding of ourselves, our lives, and our place in the universe? In this final segment, we'll explore the psychological and existential impact of infinity, examining how this concept influences our thinking, our emotions, and our experience of life. Let's begin with the psychological impact of infinity. When we think about infinity, we often experience a sense of awe, wonder, and even fear. The sheer vastness of the infinite can be overwhelming, challenging our ability to comprehend and make sense of it. This feeling of being overwhelmed by the infinite is something that philosophers and psychologists have long explored. The German philosopher Immanuel Kant, for example, described the experience of the sublime, a feeling of awe and terror in the face of something vast and incomprehensible. For Kant, the sublime was closely tied to the concept of infinity. When we contemplate the infinite, we are confronted with the limits of our own understanding, and this can evoke a profound emotional response. Modern psychology has also explored the impact of infinity on the human mind. The concept of cognitive dissonance, for example, describes the mental discomfort we feel when we encounter ideas or experiences that challenge our existing beliefs or understanding. Infinity, with its boundless possibilities and paradoxes, often creates cognitive dissonance, forcing us to grapple with ideas that defy our usual ways of thinking. This cognitive dissonance can lead to a range of emotional responses, from anxiety and fear to curiosity and wonder. For some, the idea of infinity is a source of existential dread, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the smallness of our place within it. For others, it's a source of inspiration, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that life offers and the endless potential for exploration and discovery. But infinity is not just a source of psychological challenge. It's also a profound source of existential reflection. When we contemplate infinity, we are forced to confront some of the deepest questions about life, existence, and meaning. For many, the concept of infinity raises questions about the nature of life and death. If the universe is infinite, what does that mean for our own mortality? Are we just a brief moment in an endless expanse of time? Or is there something infinite about our own existence? These questions have been explored by philosophers, theologians, and mystics throughout history. In many religious traditions, the idea of an infinite afterlife, a heaven or nirvana, offers a way of transcending the finite limitations of human existence. For others, the idea of infinity is more about the here and now, about finding meaning and purpose in the infinite possibilities of life. Existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus explored the idea of infinity in the context of human freedom and choice. For Sartre, the concept of bad faith describes the ways in which we avoid confronting the infinite possibilities of our own existence by retreating into comfortable, predefined roles or identities. True freedom, Sartre argued, comes from embracing the infinite possibilities of life and taking responsibility for our own choices and actions. For Camus, the idea of the absurd is closely tied to the concept of infinity. The absurd arises from the clash between our desire for meaning and the infinite, indifferent universe in which we find ourselves. Yet, rather than despair, Camus advocated for a life lived with passion and rebellion, a life that embraces the infinite possibilities of existence, even in the face of absurdity. This brings us back to the central question of our exploration. What is infinity, and what does it mean for us? As we've seen, infinity is a concept that defies easy definition. It's a mathematical idea, a philosophical puzzle, a scientific mystery, and a psychological challenge. It's something that has fascinated and perplexed thinkers for millennia, and it continues to do so today. But perhaps the most important thing about infinity is not what it is, but what it represents. Infinity is a reminder of the boundless possibilities that exist in the universe and in our own lives. It challenges us to think beyond the finite, to explore the unknown, and to embrace the infinite potential that lies within each of us. As we come to the end of our journey, we are left with more questions than answers. Questions that invite us to continue exploring, questioning, and discovering. Infinity, in all its forms, is a mystery that will never be fully solved, but that's what makes it so compelling. It's a concept that invites us to look beyond the limits of our understanding and to embrace the endless possibilities that life offers. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of infinity. We hope that this journey has sparked your curiosity, challenged your thinking, and inspired you to explore the infinite possibilities that lie ahead. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep embracing the infinite. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with others who might be fascinated by the infinite. We look forward to having you with us on our next journey. Until then, take care and keep wondering. This is Gaming Sim Life, signing off.
Turn left. Get ready to turn left. Turn left.